Welcome back to Fairy Tale Nights. My name is James, and tonight I invite you to slow down, to soften your shoulders, and to let the day drift quietly behind you. In a moment, we'll step into a story where a train only arrives when the world is hushed, where forgotten dreams are not gone, only resting. So settle in, breathe gently, and let this night carry you, one calm mile at a time. Platform revealed itself slowly, as if it had been waiting for the night to grow quiet enough to be seen. It was not marked on any map, and no road led directly to it. Yet somehow, the traveler arrived there without effort, guided by a feeling rather than a direction. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of iron and old rain. A single lantern flickered beside the tracks, its light soft and patient, casting long shadows that seemed unhurried by time. The station was small, just one platform, a wooden bench, worn smooth by years of waiting, and a clock that ticked without numbers on its face. Its hands moved slowly, not counting minutes, but moments. Here, time felt less like something to follow and more like something to rest within. No other passengers stood nearby, no voices echoed, and yet the place did not feel lonely. It felt held, like a pause between breaths or the silence that follows a long, meaningful thought. The traveler stood still, hands tucked into their coat, feeling the weight of the day gently loosen. All the usual noise of life, decisions, regrets, unfinished conversations, seemed to fade at the edges, as though the night itself were kindly asking them to set those things down for a while. Somewhere beyond the darkness, far down the track, a low hum began to rise. Not loud, not urgent, just present. A promise rather than a sound. The traveler did not check the time. There was no need. The night train would arrive when it was ready, and when it did, everything would begin. The traveler did not think of themselves as one who had been waiting. Life had felt full, busy, even. Days had arrived, one after another, each asking to be lived, to be completed. There had been responsibilities, small joys, quiet disappointments, and long stretches of simply carrying on. And yet, standing on that dim platform, something gentle and honest stirred inside them. They realized how often they had postponed their own hopes. Not abandoned, never fully, but set aside with good intentions. Later, they had told themselves, when things are calmer, when there is more time, when I am more ready. Those moments of readiness had never quite arrived. The traveler remembered evenings when they had stared out of windows, imagining different versions of their life. Paths that branched off softly in the mind, then faded by morning. Dreams that once felt urgent had slowly grown quiet. Not from failure, but from neglect. Like letters never sent, still folded neatly in a drawer. There was no sharp pain in these memories, only a dull, familiar ache. The kind that comes from realizing how gently time can move past us when we are not looking. The traveler exhaled, watching their breath turn pale in the night air. They were not young anymore, but not old either. suspended somewhere in between, where questions feel heavier and answers less certain. Still, beneath the tiredness, there was something else. A small, steady curiosity. A wondering about what might happen if, just once, they did not rush back to the safety of routine. The hum in the distance grew a little clearer now. The traveler felt it resonate in their chest, like a memory knocking softly, asking to be noticed. They straightened slightly, not with excitement, but with quiet willingness. Whatever was coming, they were ready to meet it. Not to fix the past, not to chase lost time, but simply to see it clearly. The night seemed to lean closer, listening. The sound arrived before the train itself. A low, steady rhythm moved through the rails, gentle as a distant heartbeat. The platform seemed to recognize it, the wooden boards settling softly beneath the traveler's feet, the lantern's flame growing still. Then, slowly, the darkness along the tracks began to shift. The train emerged, as if it had always been there, simply unnoticed until now. Its body was long and dark, brushed with silver where moonlight touched the metal. The windows glowed faintly from within, not bright, but warm, like rooms lit for evening rest rather than activity. There were no markings on the sides, no name, no destination displayed at the front, just a quiet presence arriving without urgency. The train came to a smooth stop, releasing a soft sigh of steam, as though it too had been carrying something heavy and was grateful to set it down for a moment. A door opened in front of the traveler. No announcement followed, no instructions. The invitation was wordless. The traveler hesitated, not from fear, but from habit. A lifetime of needing to know where things were going had shaped that pause. They looked up and down the platform once more, as if expecting a sign to appear at the last second, offering certainty. None came. Instead, there was only the night, the steady patience of the train, and a calm sense that whatever waited inside did not require preparation. With a slow breath, the traveler stepped forward. The moment their foot crossed the threshold, the air changed. It felt softer, warmer, carrying the faint scent of old paper and clean fabric. The door closed behind them without a sound, sealing off the platform as gently as a memory slipping out of focus. Inside, the train did not move right away. It allowed the traveler a moment to stand, to feel the subtle sway beneath their feet. Then, without warning or fanfare, it began to glide forward, smooth and unhurried. There was no jolt, no sense of departure, only motion, quiet and continuous. The traveler did not feel taken somewhere. They felt carried. The conductor appeared not by approach, but by presence. One moment, the traveler was alone in the narrow corridor between carriages, listening to the soft rhythm of the train. The next, someone stood nearby, as if the space itself had quietly made room for him. He was tall, wrapped in a dark coat that seemed worn in the most comforting way, like something often relied upon. His face carried lines, but they were not signs of age so much as signs of listening. "Good evening," he said softly. His voice was calm, unhurried, and warm enough to settle something deep in the traveler's chest. It was the kind of voice that did not ask for explanations. I don't know where this train is going, the traveler said, surprised by how easily the truth came out. The conductor smiled. Not broadly, but kindly. That's all right, he replied. It rarely does. He gestured down the corridor. The doors to the carriages stood closed, each marked only by a small, glowing symbol. Stars, leaves, waves, shapes that felt familiar without being recognizable. You may sit wherever you like, the conductor continued, or wander. There's no schedule to keep here. And when do we arrive? The traveler asked. Conductor paused, as if considering the question not for accuracy, but for care. When you're ready, he said. They walked together for a few steps, the conductor's pace matching the traveler's without effort. Train hummed gently beneath them, a sound that felt less mechanical and more alive, like breathing. You won't find anything here that wishes to harm you, the conductor said quietly. Only things that wish to be seen. The traveler nodded, though they were not entirely sure what that meant. Still, they felt no fear, only a growing sense of safety, as though the rules of the outside world had been kindly suspended. Conductor stopped at one of the doors and placed his hand lightly against it. Take your time, he said. I'll be nearby. Then he stepped back, and somehow, impossibly, he was already gone. The traveler stood before the door, heart steady, hand hovering just above the handle. They sensed that whatever waited inside would not demand courage, only honesty. And that felt enough. The door opened without resistance, as though it had been expecting the traveler's hand. Inside, the carriage was wider than it appeared from the corridor. Soft lamps glowed along the walls, their light warm and forgiving. Rows of seats stretched out, upholstered in fabrics that felt familiar beneath the traveler's fingertips. Textures that reminded them of old coats, childhood rooms, and evenings spent lingering in thought. The air carried a quiet hum, not unlike the sound of pages being turned somewhere far away. As the traveler walked slowly down the aisle, they began to notice that each seat held something intangible, yet unmistakable. Not objects, exactly, but moments. Possibilities. Versions of life that had once been imagined with clarity and hope. In one seat, there was the echo of a younger self, sitting at a desk late at night, believing deeply in a future shaped by creativity. Traveler felt the excitement of those hours. The certainty that time was endless, that passion alone would be enough. The memory did not ache. It simply rested there, peaceful, like a photograph that no longer demands explanation. In another carriage, they sensed a different dream entirely. A quieter one. The idea of belonging somewhere deeply, of building a life that moved at a slower pace, shaped by shared mornings and familiar laughter. The traveler paused here, feeling the warmth of what might have been, without the sharpness of regret. It felt like touching a stone smoothed by water. Changed, but still strong. Some seats were empty, holding dreams that had never fully taken shape. Half-formed wishes, abandoned not out of failure, but because the traveler had grown into someone else before they could be named. These felt lighter, like whispers rather than weights. As the train moved forward, The scenery beyond the windows shifted gently. Landscapes appeared and faded, fields beneath starlight, distant cities glowing softly, roads that curved away into mist. Each view seemed to correspond to a feeling rather than a place. The traveler realized that none of these dreams were asking to be reclaimed exactly as they were. They were not demanding fulfillment or resolution. They were simply present, acknowledging that they had once mattered. And somehow, that was enough. With each step through the carriage, the traveler felt a subtle loosening inside, a permission to remember without judgment, to honor what had been imagined, even if it had never become real. By the time they reached the end of the carriage, the traveler felt calmer than before. Not lighter, because something had been erased, but lighter because something had been understood. The door at the far end waited quietly. The journey was not finished yet. The next carriage felt different the moment the traveler stepped inside. The light was dimmer here, softer, as if filtered through layers of dusk. The air seemed heavier, not unpleasant, but dense with feeling. This was not a place of sharp memories, but of lingering ones. The kind that settles slowly in the heart over many years. The traveler moved more carefully now. Here were the moments shaped by hesitation, the words not spoken. The invitations declined because the timing was wrong, or courage felt just out of reach. The traveler sensed conversations that might have changed everything had they been allowed to begin. One seat carried the weight of a love that never found its moment. Not because it was impossible, but because both people waited too long, hoping for a clear sign. The feeling that remained was not heartbreak, but a quiet wondering what might have grown here if only we had trusted it. Another place held the memory of choosing safety over longing, of staying where things were familiar, even when something inside whispered for more. The traveler felt compassion for the version of themselves who had made that choice. They had been trying to protect something fragile. They had not known how else to survive. A gentle ache settled in the traveler's chest, but it did not overwhelm them. The train seemed to carry some of the weight, absorbing it into its steady motion. The rhythm of the rails became a comfort, like a hand resting reassuringly on the back. The traveler realized that regret, when faced softly, did not punish. It simply revealed how deeply they had cared. They sat for a while, allowing the feelings to rise and pass without resistance. Tears came, not from sorrow alone, but from recognition, from seeing their own humanity reflected back at them with kindness. Nothing in this carriage asked for correction. There were no second chances offered here, no doors leading backward. Instead, there was acceptance, the understanding that even the things that never happened had shaped the traveler into who they were now. They had taught patience, tenderness, humility. They had made space for empathy. When the traveler finally stood, they felt steadier, not because the weight was gone, but because it had been acknowledged. As they reached for the door, the heaviness eased just slightly, enough to let them breathe more freely again. The train continued on, unwavering, carrying all of it forward. This carriage held almost nothing. No rows of seats, no glowing lamps, just a wide open space filled with a soft, silvery light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The floor was smooth and warm beneath the traveler's feet, and the walls curved gently, like the inside of a quiet breath. The train slowed here, not to a stop, but to something close to it. The rhythm of the rails softened until it was barely more than a suggestion. In the stillness, the traveler became aware of their own breathing, slow, even unforced. There were no memories waiting in this place, no dreams, forgotten or otherwise, no questions asking to be answered, only silence. At first, the traveler felt uncertain. So much of life had been shaped by movement, by striving, choosing, becoming. Standing in a space that asked for nothing felt unfamiliar, almost unsettling. But slowly, that feeling gave way to something gentler. The travelers sat down on the floor, folding their legs comfortably beneath them. Without distractions, without reflection, there was room to simply be. Thoughts drifted through like clouds, appearing and dissolving without meaning or urgency. In this quiet, the traveler noticed something subtle but profound. Beneath every dream they had carried, beneath every regret they had examined, there had always been a steady presence. A sense of self untouched by success or failure. It had been there all along. The traveler rested in that awareness, letting it expand and soften. The silence did not feel empty anymore. It felt full, like deep water, or a night sky without stars, vast and peaceful. After a while, though time no longer felt measurable, the train began to gather its rhythm again. The soft hum returned, steady and reassuring. The travelers stood, not reluctantly, but without haste. They carried the silence with them, as one might carry warmth after stepping out of sunlight. As they approached the next door, they felt changed in a quiet way. Not transformed, not resolved, but steadied and ready for whatever came next. The light in this carriage was brighter, though still gentle, like early morning filtered through thin curtains. The traveler noticed windows here, wide and clear, revealing landscapes that no longer felt distant or unreachable. Outside, the world moved slowly. Hills rolled past, softened by mist. Rivers reflected pale moonlight, not rushing, not still, simply flowing as they always had. This space did not hold old dreams in their original shapes. Instead, it held something subtler, the essence of them. The traveler sensed creativity here, but no longer bound to grand expectations. It appeared as small, steady moments. Writing a few honest lines for no one but oneself, shaping something with care, noticing beauty without needing to keep it. They felt connection too, not as a dramatic promise, but as presence. The quiet joy of being truly seen in ordinary moments. Of listening and being listened to without urgency. Hope in this carriage was not loud. It did not insist on becoming anything specific. It existed as permission to begin again in smaller ways. Permission to rest without giving up. Permission to let life unfold without constant correction. The traveler understood then that not all dreams were meant to be fulfilled exactly as imagined. Some were meant to soften, to transform, to teach the heart how to remain open even as time moved on. They smiled, not from excitement, but from relief. The weight of proving something, of catching up, of making everything meaningful all at once, began to fade. In its place was a quiet trust that life could still offer moments of depth and beauty, even now, even here. As the train moved forward, the traveler felt no need to rush ahead. The view beyond the windows was enough. The movement itself felt purposeful, even without a destination. When they reached the far end of the carriage, the door stood open already, as if sensing their readiness. Travelers stepped through, carrying with them a hope that did not demand the future, only the present. The train began to slow in a way that felt familiar, like a body easing itself awake after deep rest. Outside the windows, the darkness thinned. Night did not vanish all at once. It softened, turning from deep blue to pale gray, then to a gentle wash of early morning light. Shapes emerged slowly, distant trees, quiet rooftops, a sky just beginning to breathe in color. The traveler felt the change before they saw it. A subtle return of gravity, of edges, of the world waiting. The train glided into a small station, simpler than the one where the journey had begun. There were no lanterns here, only the natural glow of dawn. Platform was clean and open, touched by the hush that lives in early mornings before anyone speaks. The doors opened. Travelers stepped out, the cool air brushing their face like a kind greeting. They felt different, not renewed in a dramatic way, but settled, as if something inside them had found its proper place. Behind them, the train waited quietly. The conductor stood near the door, hands folded loosely, his presence calm as ever. "You don't need to remember everything," he said gently, as if responding to a thought. "Only what feels true." The traveler nodded. They understood. Some parts of the journey would fade, like dreams often do. But the feeling, the softness, the acceptance that would remain. "Thank you," the traveler said. The conductor smiled, already beginning to step back. "We'll meet again," he replied, "if you ever need to." The doors closed without sound. The train moved on, slipping away along the tracks as the light grew stronger. Within moments, it was gone, leaving behind only silence and the faintest warmth in the air. The traveler stood alone on the platform, watching the sky brighten. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. The traveler did not hurry away from the platform. They stood for a few moments longer, listening to the quiet of the morning settle into place. Somewhere nearby, a bird called once, then fell silent again. The world was waking gently, without demand. There was no sign that the night train had ever been there. No lingering steam, no echo along the rails. And yet, the traveler felt certain it continued on, moving through other nights, other silences, arriving for those who had reached the same quiet edge of themselves. At last, the traveler turned and walked on. Their steps were unremarkable, blending easily into the rhythm of an ordinary morning. But inside, something had shifted. The past no longer pressed so heavily. The future no longer asked to be solved. What remained was a soft attentiveness to the present, an openness shaped by everything that had been seen, felt, and gently accepted. The traveler carried their forgotten dreams differently now, not as burdens and not as unfinished tasks, but as teachers, as quiet companions that had helped them understand who they were and who they were still becoming. And somewhere, far beyond sight, the night train followed its endless track, ready to appear again when the world grew still enough to listen. As you rest here, perhaps you can sense how this story mirrors something in your own life. We all carry dreams that changed, softened, or slipped quietly out of reach. Not because we failed, but because we grew, adapted, survived. And like the traveler, we may discover that those dreams were never meant to haunt us, only to shape us. Maybe tonight you don't need answers. Maybe it's enough to let the past be seen with kindness and to trust that whatever still matters will find its way to you gently in its own time. And as you drift towards sleep, you might wonder, what forgotten dream in you is simply waiting to be held with understanding? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Sweet dreams and good night.